Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of our Southern California housing market update. This is for December 1st, 2020. So, this is our post Thanksgiving update. My name is Stephen Mead with Domicile Real Estate, where we are real estate for people who love houses. It's great to have everybody back after the holiday. I hope everybody had a safe and sane holiday. One of the things that obviously we put here in the description is that the numbers go haywire. And that isn't just clickbait, that is true. And we kind of want to talk about why that has happened and how this year sort of continues to buck the trends. And as we get closer to the end of the year, one of the things that I'm kind of thinking about is what are our underlying themes this year? What did we learn about the market? And, our Southern California housing market is both unique and similar to markets around the state and around the country. On one hand, I think this has very much been the year of the buyer. Buyers are what is driving the market. There is a huge demand for housing. A lot of that is driven by interest rates being super low, which has really increased affordability to some degree. It's made two kinds of transactions possible. Not only has it made it possible for first-time home buyers, but it's also made move-up opportunities a lot more possible for people who maybe are going from that condo to their first single-family home, or going from that starter single-family home up to their sort of dream or a larger move-up single-family home. And just a reminder for everyone out there, we do cover the Southern California housing market. We base our statistics on Los Angeles and Orange counties. So without further ado, let's jump into the numbers and see why they are going completely haywire. So we're starting here with our new listings, and this is sort of our supply of the market. And I mean, really, this kind of tells the story right here. This past week, we saw a huge reduction, a 33%, over 33% reduction in listings, and nearly, even a bigger reduction in our $1 to $2 million category. Now, of course, something very important happened in the last week. It was Thanksgiving week. Very, very few sellers typically put their homes on the market, and that's reflected in the numbers. So this is not really an unusual result. We aren't surprised by that. I think the real test will be when we look at next week and do we see how much do these numbers bounce back, or do we see kind of like that maybe they only come back to around here for our under 1 million category, or still below their previous numbers. I think that'll really be telling to see what kind of December we're going to have. If we compare with last year, I think we see an interesting story as well. Despite these huge reductions, this is a year that it feels like all of our timelines. I'm going to go off the share here for a second, because I think this has really been something that you have to understand, and that maybe helps a little bit with predicting the future. So one of the things that we noticed last year, or when we look at this year versus last year, is it feels like a lot of our time milestones are delayed. So our summer got started late. Our fall reductions got started late. And here we are in December. And even though our numbers are way down for new listings, they are still way higher than they were in 2019. And 2019 was actually a pretty decent year in the fall. So I think you really have to understand that perspective, that this is one of those years where normally, a lot of buyers and sellers have gone into hibernating mode. We're past the holidays. They're thinking about a lot of things other than real estate. Not this year. So if we move on here and we look at our new escrows, we see a very, very similar story, right? And that similar story is a huge reduction, but you'll notice not nearly as big of a reduction as we saw in the new listings. And that's important, right? So if we back up here, we see in our under 1 million category, we had fewer than 1,000 new listings. We had over 1,000 new escrows. So that means we are actually sort of burning out our reserves, meaning buyers are snapping up houses faster than new houses are coming on the market. And if we look, we even see a similar story down here. Not nearly as much of a drop. And I think part of the reason why is, our 1 to 2 million sales cycle is a little bit longer. It's more days on market. These deals are sort of longer in the works. They take a little longer to put together sometimes. Now, if we compare to last year, we see again, a pretty healthy increase over the year before. Not quite as big of an increase as we saw for the new listings, but still definitely doing better in 2020 than in 2019 for our under $1 million escrows. Now, the next question is, what is this doing to prices? Like, what are we seeing happening in prices? And, if we go and we take a look at our average pending list price, and again, remember, there's some issues with this. This isn't a perfect statistic. I skipped ahead. I said it, but I didn't show it graphically. Let's look at our absorption rate. So remember, our absorption rate is reconciling this supply and demand relationship. And, this number just shot through the roof. And this was a weird week because of the Thanksgiving Day holiday. But what I think is fascinating about this is that when we look at this number, I mean, this just basically says, buyers barely skipped a beat. Every seller said, not a great week. We don't want to put our house in the market. And almost all of the buyers stayed in the market. And you see these wild numbers kind of for both of that. I mean, the buyers are still very much out there. They are looking at houses. If you were to put up a property on the market, in fact, I showed a property the day after Thanksgiving. It went on the market the day after Thanksgiving, and we went and saw it. Why? Because there's just not that much inventory. The buyers are going to stay out there. Now, if we go ahead and we take a look at where prices are, right? It cut off the label here, but this is actually a new high for our average pending list price. We actually hit 652. And so even though this curve is kind of slowed down from where it was in the spring, I mean, spring, it was just boom, boom, boom. The market was just rising so quickly. We're still seeing a net rise. I mean, if you look, especially since maybe October 1st, this is definitely a gain. Like, this is a very noticeable gain in this under $1 million category. And I think it is primarily being driven by the fact we just do not have enough inventory. And when supply is this short, buyers begin to get desperate and they will buy and they will run those prices up. That is what produces the price increases in our market. Also, we saw a reduction in interest rates, which I'll talk about in our last slide, but that also made buyers a little bit more ambitious, maybe going a little bit further, going a little bit higher. And if you look here, our list to close ratio, it started dropping, but boy, now it's back up over 101%. This means that on average, homes are selling for more than they are being listed for, on average. And that's just kind of really a crazy position to be in. It means that you are still seeing, no matter what prices sellers are setting, the market is kind of meeting those prices and even exceeding them. And we've watched as sellers have actually increased these list prices in the last month or so. What I'm going to do here is go over and, we do have a little bit of numbers that are different in our 1 to 2 million for this average pending list price. One of the things that I like to caution about is there are two principles I talk about. Number one is sample size. And just by nature of the price range, we have a much smaller sample size for $1 to $2 million homes than we do for under 1 million. And when I say much smaller, I mean, it's like a quarter the size of the sample size. So we did see this number take a little bit of a drop, but be careful and look at our graph here. This is actually not quite the range it seems. It dropped 28,000, but again, I think this is really a blip and we'll see this next week bounce back. If we're going to our days on market, which I think is a great sort of corroborating resource, we are still seeing low days on market. In fact, we dropped back down a little bit. We are still well under 30 days on market for our under 1 million category here. And while we did see this number increase for 1 to 2 million, it's still under 40 days. I mean, back in the middle of summer, we were hitting over that. I don't see any alarm bells. Like I said, I'm curious to see if that pending number bounces back next week, or if we keep seeing a downward trend, then we might have to talk about that maybe there's some softness in that luxury market, that $1 to $2 million market. Finally, if we go to, I don't have that graph on here this week. Let me see if I can find that for you guys, because I do want you to be able to see these numbers for our affordability index. I do think that is important. So let me see if I can open that up here just in a window. If Google Sheets wants to cooperate with me. I'm getting, if any of you guys are on a Mac, I'm getting the rainbow beach ball of death, right? Which is probably, that's really the last thing you want to see when you're working on your Mac, is the rainbow beach ball of death. And hopefully we'll be able to bring this up. I have the results for you, but I do want to give you these numbers. Okay, so here we go. Let me screen share this, and I can bring this up for you guys. Let me do this real quick here. Thank you for bearing with me. So this is our payment on a median priced home graph. I hope this is showing up okay for you guys. I realize the numbers are probably a little bit small. They're not as big as they usually are. For that, I apologize. But if you look, we set a baseline of June 2018. And what you look at this number is these low interest rates are really driving this to be under 90%. That means from a payment perspective, buyers are still getting a little bit more than 10% off what they would be paying for a median priced home back 2.5 years ago now. I will tell you this, we base this statistic on closed sales. And what I am seeing in the market is that about a month ago was a relatively soft period of time in the market, relatively speaking. And I think we're going to see this number jump back into this 90 to 95% range. Still less expensive than we were in 2018. Finally, before we go, I hope everybody's enjoyed our update. We do these once a week. We also do a first-time home buyer market update on Fridays. But the last thing I wanted to talk about real briefly is that we're going to start up doing a series of webinars. And I think we're going to do both for first-time home buyers. We have a few of those made up. They're relatively short, but we're also going to do them on topics that are interesting and that will be of value to clients that are not necessarily first-time home buyers. And again, we really like to base this on making good decisions based on information. I think if there's anything we're sort of really about as a firm, it's that. It's using real estate information to make better real estate decisions for you and your family. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Questions, comments, we love them. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you're watching on YouTube. And we will see you with our market update next week.